Well, if you look behind me, this is the home where Josh Phillips lived. That far right window was his bedroom, where Maddie Clifton's body was found under his bed. Just across the street is where Clifton's home was. Her sister just moved in.
I hop and seeing a missing persons poster on the window walking into the...
An 8-year-old girl steps outside to play in her front yard and effectively evaporates into thin air, leaving no physical trace behind. For 7 agonizing days, an entire city tears itself apart searching for her, convinced she was snatched by a stranger and taken miles away. But the devastating truth isn't found in a distant swamp or a fleeing vehicle. It hides in the one place nobody thinks to look, concealing a secret that will shatter the community's sense of safety forever. Madeline Ray Clifton, known to everyone as Maddie, is the heartbeat of her quiet Lakewood neighborhood in Jacksonville, Florida. Born in 1990, she is the beloved younger daughter of Steve and Sheila Clifton. Maddie is pure energy, a social butterfly who waves at every car that passes and considers every neighbor a friend. She isn't just a passive observer of life. She attacks it with enthusiasm, whether she is practicing piano scales, obsessing over the band NSYNC, or hitting golf balls with her father. She is smart, trusting, and deeply loved by her parents and her older sister, Jessie. On this Tuesday in 1998, life for the Clifton family is routine, filled with the mundane comfort of work, school, and play. It is November 3rd, 1998, just past 5 p.m., and the autumn sun is beginning its slow descent over Jacksonville. The late afternoon of November 3rd begins with the comfortable rhythm of a household in motion. Sheila Clifton prepares for her evening shift at the local grocery store. She says her goodbyes to her family, unaware that the door clicking shut behind her marks the boundary between her life as she knows it and the nightmare to come. It is roughly 4:30 p.m. Inside the Clifton home, the dynamic shifts to a relaxed father-daughter evening. Steve Clifton, Maddie's father, is in the kitchen preparing dinner. Maddie, energetic and looking for entertainment, asks permission to go outside. She wants to practice her golf swing in the front yard. Steve agrees but sets the standard boundary: stay in the front yard, keep the house in sight. It is a rule Maddie has followed 1,000 times before. She steps out the front door wearing a t-shirt, shorts, and socks, leaving her shoes inside. It isn't unusual for her. She loves the feel of the grass on her feet. For the next 30 to 45 minutes, the neighborhood is alive with the subtle sounds of suburbia. Cars drive by, neighbors return from work. Maddie is spotted by friends and neighbors playing in her yard, swinging a golf club, looking every bit the happy child she is known to be. She is safe. She is seen. She is right where she is supposed to be. At 5:00 p.m., a neighbor sees Maddie near the large oak tree in her front yard. Everything appears normal. Inside, Steve finishes up the dinner preparation. He glances at the clock. It is approaching 5:30 p.m. The sun is dipping lower, casting long shadows across the lawns of Lakewood. It is time to eat. Steve walks to the front door and calls out for Maddie. Silence. He expects to see her pop up from behind a bush or come running from the side of the house. He waits a beat. He calls again, louder this time. Nothing but the ambient noise of the neighborhood. Steve steps out onto the porch. He scans the front yard. The golf club is there. The ball is there. Maddie is not. He walks around the perimeter of the house, his pace quickening. He checks the backyard. He checks the garage. He looks down the street in both directions. Concern begins to curdle into panic. It is unlike Maddie to wander off. She knows the rules. She is a child who checks in. Steve runs to the neighbors' houses. He knocks on doors. He asks the kids playing nearby, "Have you seen Maddie?" The answers are all the same. They saw her earlier. They don't know where she is now. Steve returns to the house and calls Sheila at work. He tries to keep his voice steady, but the fear is bleeding through. He tells her Maddie is missing. Sheila drops everything. She rushes out of the store, her heart hammering against her ribs. Before we continue with what happened that night, hit that subscribe button if you want to see justice served in cases like this. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? By the time Sheila arrives home, the sun has vanished. The darkness of the November evening feels heavy and suffocating. Steve has already called 911. It is now just past 6 p.m. The police are on their way. The initial search is frantic but hopeful. Parents and neighbors grab flashlights. They sweep the nearby streets calling Maddie's name. They check the storm drains. They look under porches. They assume she has simply lost track of time, or perhaps followed a stray animal a few blocks away. They expect to find her crying on a sidewalk, scared but safe. But as the minutes stretch into hours, the atmosphere shifts from concern to dread. Jacksonville police arrive in force. The first responders immediately sense the gravity of the situation. An 8-year-old girl does not just disappear from her front yard without a sound. They establish a command post. They tape off the Clifton home. They begin the grid search. Detectives interview Steve and Sheila. They need to rule out the parents immediately, standard procedure. But it becomes clear very quickly that this is a loving family. Steve was inside cooking. Sheila was at work. Their distress is raw and genuine. The timeline is tight. Maddie was seen by independent witnesses just minutes before Steve called her for dinner. The window of disappearance is terrifyingly small. 15 minutes, maybe 20. In that tiny sliver of time, Maddie Clifton vanished. There was no scream, no screech of tires, no witness reporting a struggle. Just a child playing one moment and an empty yard the next. By midnight, the search radius expands. Helicopters equipped with infrared cameras chop through the night sky, their searchlights sweeping the wooded areas and creeks that crisscross the neighborhood. K9 units are deployed. The dogs are given Maddie's scent from her clothing. They track her from the front door, into the yard, and out toward the street. But then, the trail simply stops. It doesn't lead down the road. It doesn't lead to a park. It ends abruptly, as if she was lifted straight off the earth. What investigators found next would send the case in a direction no one expected. The response from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is immediate and overwhelming. By the morning of November 4th, the quiet suburb of Lakewood has been transformed into a fortress of police activity. This is not a wait-and-see scenario. The authorities treat Maddie's disappearance as an abduction from hour one. Sheriff Nat Glover makes a public vow. No resources will be spared. He is true to his word. Hundreds of officers flood the streets. They go door to door, not just asking questions, but asking for permission to search. And the residents of Lakewood, terrified and desperate to help, throw their doors open. Police enter homes, checking closets, looking under beds, inspecting attics. They open trunks of cars. They look in freezers. It is an invasion of privacy that no one minds because a child's life is on the line. Across the street from the Clifton home lives the Phillips family. They are good neighbors. Their son, Joshua, is 14 years old. He is known to the Cliftons. He and Maddie were friendly, often playing together in the way neighborhood kids do, despite the age gap. When police knock on the Phillips' door, Joshua's father, Steve Phillips, is cooperative. He allows the officers inside. Detectives walk through the Phillips home. They check the living room, the kitchen, the bathrooms. They enter Joshua's bedroom. It is a typical teenager's room. Posters, clutter, a waterbed. The officers look around. They check the closet. They see nothing suspicious. The room smells like a teenage boy's room. There is no sign of Maddie. They leave the Phillips house and move to the next one, and the next one. This process repeats throughout the entire neighborhood. Every house is a potential holding cell. Every neighbor is a potential witness. But the canvas yields nothing. No one saw a strange car. No one saw a suspicious person lurking in the shadows. Meanwhile, the forensic teams are scouring the Cliftons' front yard. They look for footprints, tire tracks, anything that could indicate a struggle. They find Maddie's golf ball. They find the club, but there is no blood. There is no torn clothing. The physical evidence is non-existent. The K9 units run the trail again and again. Every time, the dogs get confused near the street. One dog seems interested in the area near the Phillips house, but the handler pulls it away, assuming the scent is just residual from Maddie and Joshua playing together in the past. It is a tragic oversight in a chaotic scene. As the first 24 hours bleed into 48, the investigation moves into the technical phase. Detectives pull records for every registered sex offender in the region. They begin the tedious process of verifying alibis. They knock on doors of men with dark pasts, demanding to know where they were between 5 and 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday. Tips begin to pour in. A hotline is established. People report seeing a white car. Others report a blue van. A witness claims to have seen a girl matching Maddie's description at a gas station 3 towns over. Detectives chase every single lead. They pull surveillance tapes from convenience stores. They interview gas station clerks. Each lead feels like a potential breakthrough. Detectives immediately thought they had a match when a clerk identified Maddie's photo. But the evidence told a different story. The girl on the tape is just another blonde child with a ponytail. The blue van turns out to be a contractor late for a job. The white car belongs to a neighbor visiting a sick relative. That theory fell apart when alibis checked out. Hope surges and crashes with every phone call. The FBI joins the investigation. They bring their child abduction rapid deployment team. They bring profilers who specialize in this exact nightmare. The profilers analyze the victimology. Maddie was low risk. She didn't run away. She wasn't rebellious. This points to a stranger abduction, someone who saw an opportunity and took it. Or, the profilers suggest, it is someone she knew, someone she trusted, someone who could get her to leave the yard without making a sound. Detectives circle back to the family. They re-interview everyone. They look at extended family members. They look at friends of the family. They administer polygraph tests. Steve and Sheila Clifton pass with flying colors. Their grief is not performative. It is destroying them. The investigators hit the streets again. They search the storm drains that run beneath the city. They drain local retention ponds. Dive teams slip into the murky waters of the St. Johns River. The image of divers surfacing empty-handed becomes a recurring shot on the evening news. The medical examiner is put on standby, a grim formality that no one wants to acknowledge. By the end of the week, the police have searched hundreds of homes. They have interviewed thousands of people. They have distributed tens of thousands of flyers. They have chased leads to Georgia and Alabama. But despite the massive influx of resources, despite the FBI's expertise, and despite the entire city of Jacksonville looking for one little girl, there is absolute silence. And that's where the case hit a wall that would last for what felt like an eternity. For the Clifton family, the days following November 3rd are not measured in hours, but in heartbeats. The concept of time dissolves into a singular, agonizing state of waiting. Jacksonville transforms. The city becomes a sea of yellow. Yellow ribbons are tied around oak trees, telephone poles, and car antennas. It is a symbol of hope, a signal to Maddie that her community is waiting for her return. Volunteers from all over Florida descend on Lakewood. They walk shoulder to shoulder through swamps and dense brush, beating down tall grass with sticks, praying they don't find what they are looking for, yet terrified they won't find anything at all. People like the person who took Maddie count on silence to cover their evil. Show them your voice stands for justice. Type "Justice for Maddie" in the comments and hit that like button. The media coverage goes national. Maddie's smiling face is on Good Morning America, The Today Show, and CNN. Her parents, Steve and Sheila, sit in front of cameras, their eyes hollowed by lack of sleep, holding up Maddie's picture. They beg the abductor to just let her go. "Drop her off at a fire station," Sheila pleads, her voice breaking. "Just bring my baby home." Behind the scenes, the investigation is stalling. The initial adrenaline of the police force is being replaced by the grinding frustration of a dead-end case. The stranger danger theory is the primary focus. Detectives are convinced that a predator was cruising the neighborhood, spotted Maddie, and snatched her. It fits the timeline. It fits the lack of physical evidence at the scene. But there is a problem. No one saw the abduction. In a dense suburban neighborhood at 5 p.m, nobody saw a struggle. Nobody saw a car speed away. It defies logic. Detectives return to the neighborhood. They knock on doors for a second, third, and fourth time. They speak to the neighbors again. They speak to Joshua Phillips again. The 14-year-old neighbor seems shaken by the disappearance, just like everyone else. In fact, Joshua is helpful. He is seen putting up flyers. He approaches the police command post, asking the officers if there is anything he can do to help. He talks to the media. He stands in his front yard, watching the search team scour the woods, looking like a concerned friend. To the detectives, he is just a kid, a bit quiet, maybe a bit awkward, but polite. He has no criminal record. He comes from a good family. His father is strict, his mother is doting. There are no red flags. He doesn't fit the profile of a child abductor. He is a child himself. So, the police look past him. They look out toward the highway, toward the interstate, believing the monster is miles away. As the week drags on, the emotional toll on the community becomes palpable. The reward for information climbs, $50,000, then $100,000. Tips continue to flood in, but they are becoming more erratic. Psychics call in with visions. Well-meaning citizens report seeing girls who look kind of like Maddie. Every tip must be checked. Every tip is a dead end. The Cliftons stop sleeping. They leave the porch light on 24 hours a day. They keep Maddie's room exactly as she left it, terrified that moving a toy or making the bed would signal giving up. Detectives begin to worry about the 7-day threshold. In-child abduction cases, the likelihood of finding the victim alive drops precipitously after the first 24 hours and virtually vanishes after a week. They are approaching that grim milestone. The pressure on Sheriff Glover is immense. The community is demanding answers. Why haven't they found her? How can a child disappear without a trace? Theories begin to circulate in the darker corners of the public discourse. Was it the parents? Did they hide the body? The police know the answer is no, but they can't stop the whispers. By Monday, November 9th, 6 days after the disappearance, the investigation feels like it is running on fumes. The search grid has been expanded to miles. They have checked the dumpsters. They have checked the sex offenders. They have checked the parents. They have nothing. The FBI profilers sit in the command center, rereading the case file. They go back to the geography. The disappearance was too fast. The silence was too absolute. The lack of witnesses is the witness. She didn't leave the neighborhood, one investigator argues. She never made it to the street. But they have searched the neighborhood. They have searched the houses, or so they thought. On the morning of Tuesday, November 10th, 1 week to the day since Maddie vanished, Sheila Clifton wakes up to another day of hell. The yellow ribbons are starting to fade in the Florida sun. The news crews are beginning to pack up, looking for the next story. But in the house across the street, a secret is unraveling. Melissa Phillips, Joshua's mother, decides to clean her son's room. It is a mundane task. She wants to tidy up. Joshua is at school. She goes into his bedroom, ready to pick up laundry and organize the clutter. She notices something odd about his waterbed. It seems misaligned. The mattress is sitting strangely on the pedestal. She tries to adjust it. It feels heavy, heavier than water. She pushes on the mattress. She feels something solid underneath, something that shouldn't be there. But in 1998, a breakthrough would finally emerge from the most unexpected source. It is just before 11 a.m. when Melissa Phillips walks into her son's room. The house is quiet. She notices a strange smell, something faint but distinct, cutting through the heavy scent of incense Joshua has been burning all week. She attributes it to the dampness of the waterbed, or perhaps dirty laundry. She decides to do a deep clean. She moves toward the bed. It's a pedestal-style waterbed, heavy and cumbersome. She notices the mattress seems taped up in one corner. Curious and perhaps a bit annoyed that her son might have damaged the bed, she looks closer. What happens in the next 30 seconds is a sequence of events that Melissa Phillips will never be able to scrub from her mind. She pulls at the bedding, she inspects the wooden frame, and then she sees it. Tucked deep within the pedestal, beneath the water-filled mattress, is a shape that does not belong. It is not a pile of clothes. It is not a stored blanket. She sees a foot, a sock. Before we get to the arrest that shocked everyone, share this video with someone who follows true crime. Stories like Maddie's need to be heard. Also, drop a comment. What's the weather like where you are? Panic seizes her. She runs out of the house screaming. She bursts into the front yard, where police officers are still canvassing, still searching, still hoping. She flags down an officer, her voice hysterical. "There's something in my son's room. I think it's her." Officer Sean Quinn is nearby. He sees the sheer terror in Melissa's eyes. He rushes into the Phillips home. He enters Joshua's bedroom. The room is tidy. The bed looks normal at a glance. But the officer approaches the frame. He lifts the heavy corner of the waterbed mattress. There, concealed in the hollow space of the wooden pedestal, is the body of Madeline Ray Clifton. She has been there the entire time. For 7 days, police searched forests, swamps, and dumpsters. They flew helicopters over the city. They dragged rivers. And all the while, Maddie was less than 50 feet from her own front door. hidden beneath the bed of the boy she played with. The realization hits the officers like a physical blow. This isn't a stranger abduction. This isn't a drifter passing through town. This is the neighbor, the 14-year-old boy who helped search, the boy who watched the police from his driveway. The scene immediately shifts from a rescue mission to a homicide investigation. The Clifton home, just across the street, is still a hub of hopeful energy. Police have to make the agonizing decision to inform Steve and Sheila, but first, they have to secure the suspect. Joshua Phillips is not at home. He is at school, sitting in a classroom at the local middle school, learning history or math, as if he isn't harboring the darkest secret in Jacksonville. Detectives drive to the school. They walk into the administration office. They ask for Joshua Phillips. When they bring Joshua into the room, he doesn't look like a monster. He looks like a kid. He is wearing a backpack. He looks confused, perhaps a bit scared, but not in the way a killer usually looks. He asks why he is there. The detectives don't tell him immediately that they found the body. They want to see what he says. They want to see if the mask slips. They transport him to the police station, the patrol car navigating the same streets where yellow ribbons still flutter in the breeze. Ribbons that are now tragic reminders of a hope that is officially dead. Back in Lakewood, the word spreads. The yellow tape around the Clifton house is expanded to include the Phillips house. The sound of weeping breaks the neighborhood's silence. Steve and Sheila Clifton fall to the ground, their world ending in a single sentence delivered by the sheriff. The community is in shock. How? How could a 14-year-old do this? And more chillingly, how did he live in that room, sleep in that bed, for 7 whole days with Maddie underneath him? When detectives brought Joshua in for questioning, what they heard was beyond disturbing. The interrogation room is small, sterile, and cold. Joshua Phillips sits in a chair, looking small. He is not handcuffed yet. Detective Sean Quinn and other investigators sit across from him. They need to tread carefully. He is a minor, but the crime is heinous. They start slowly. They ask him about the last time he saw Maddie. Joshua sticks to his original story. He saw her playing, he went inside, he knows nothing. He is polite. He answers yes sir and no sir. Then, the detectives drop the facade. "Josh," one detective says, leaning in, "we found her." The silence in the room is absolute. Joshua's eyes widen slightly. The air leaves the room. There is no shouting, no denial, just a sudden crushing resignation. "She's in your room, Josh. We know." The boy's shoulders slump. The facade crumbles, not into anger, but into a pathetic, childish fear. He begins to talk, and the story he tells is not one of a premeditated thrill kill, but of a tragic accident that spiraled into unspeakable violence due to fear. Joshua explains that on the afternoon of November 3rd, he was home alone. His parents were working. He wasn't supposed to have friends over when they weren't home. Maddie came over. They were playing baseball in the backyard, just 2 kids throwing a ball around. Then, disaster struck. Joshua hit the ball. It struck Maddie in the eye. It was an accident. But Maddie, hurt and scared, began to cry. She started screaming. "I panicked," Joshua tells the detectives. "I didn't want to get in trouble." He tells them he was terrified of his father. He was terrified of what would happen if his parents came home and found Maddie injured, found out he had disobeyed the rules. In his 14-year-old mind, the crying girl wasn't a victim who needed help. She was a siren that was going to bring down punishment upon him. So, he dragged her inside. Not to help her, but to silence her. He pulled her into his room. He strangled her with a telephone cord. But she wouldn't die. She kept making noises. Desperate to stop the sound, to stop the trouble from coming home, he grabbed his baseball bat. He struck her, again and again. Then, to ensure she was gone, he used a knife. When the room finally fell silent, he was left with the reality of what he had done. He looked around. He saw his waterbed. He drained some of the water, lifted the mattress, and shoved her small body into the pedestal. He taped up the mattress. He put the sheets back on. And then, the detail that sickens even the hardened detectives. Joshua Phillips continued his life. "You slept there?" a detective asks, disbelief coloring his tone. "In that bed?" "Yes, sir." For 7 nights, Joshua Phillips slept on his waterbed, separated from Maddie's decomposing body by only a few inches of vinyl and water. He went to school. He ate dinner with his parents. He watched TV. He talked to the police searching his yard. He tells the detectives he tried to mask the smell with incense and household cleaners. He thought if he just kept quiet, it would go away. He didn't have an exit strategy. He was just waiting. The confession is devoid of the empathy one expects from a human being. It is practical. It is logical in a twisted, immature way. Problem: she is crying. Solution: stop the noise. Problem: there is a body. Solution: hide it. He shows no tears for Maddie. His fear is entirely self-centered. He is afraid of jail. He is afraid of his father. With a confession on tape, prosecutors moved quickly to ensure Joshua Phillips would face justice. The arrest of Joshua Phillips shatters the community's perception of safety. It isn't a stranger they have to fear. It is the child next door. Because of the brutality of the crime and the concealment of the body, the state of Florida makes a controversial but decisive move. Joshua Phillips will be tried as an adult. He is charged with first-degree murder. The trial begins in 1999. The courtroom is packed. The Cliftons sit in the front row, forced to listen to the gruesome details of their daughter's final moments. They have to look at the boy who sat at their dinner table, the boy who killed their daughter over a baseball accident. The defense argues that this was an act of panic by a terrified child. They paint a picture of a boy who snapped under the pressure of an abusive home environment, a claim his father denies, but which hangs over the proceedings. They argue he lacked the emotional maturity to understand the permanence of his actions until it was too late. The prosecution, however, points to the aftermath. They focus on the 7 days. This was not just a panic, the prosecutor argues. This was cold. This was calculated. They describe how he cleaned the room, how he lied to the police, how he slept on the body. They argue that any child, even a frightened one, would eventually break down and tell their parents. Joshua didn't. He hid it. The jury deliberates. It doesn't take long. Joshua Phillips is found guilty of first-degree murder. The sentence is mandatory. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. At 15 years old, Joshua Phillips is told he will die in prison. For the Cliftons, the verdict brings a measure of justice, but no peace. Their daughter is gone. The why doesn't matter. The accident defense feels like an insult. You don't accidentally strangle, beat, and stab someone. But the legal battle doesn't end there. Years pass. In 2012, the United States Supreme Court issues a ruling in Miller v. Alabama. The court decides that mandatory life sentences without parole for juveniles are unconstitutional. It is deemed cruel and unusual punishment because a child's brain is not fully developed. This ruling reopens old wounds for the Clifton family. Joshua Phillips is eligible for resentencing. In 2017, nearly 20 years after Maddie's death, the case returns to a Jacksonville courtroom. Joshua, now a man in his 30s, sits before a judge. His defense team brings in experts to talk about brain development. They talk about his rehabilitation in prison. Joshua takes the stand. He expresses remorse. He says he is sorry. Sheila Clifton takes the stand too. She speaks for Maddie, the woman who never got to grow up. She speaks of the graduations missed, the wedding that never happened, the grandchildren she will never hold. She asks the judge to keep the monster behind bars. The judge weighs the evidence. While the mandatory sentence was unconstitutional, a life sentence is still an option if the judge deems the prisoner irreparable. After reviewing the facts, the brutality, the concealment, the lack of immediate confession, the judge makes a decision. Joshua Phillips is sentenced to life in prison again. He eventually appeals this resentencing, but in 2019 and subsequent hearings, the courts uphold the decision. While he may technically have a path to a sentence review after 25 years under Florida law, for now, the man who killed Maddie Clifton remains in a cell. The Clifton family channels their grief into action. They work to tighten laws regarding sex offenders. Though not applicable here, it became a crusade for safety. They keep Maddie's memory alive through the Maddie Clifton Foundation. The murder of Maddie Clifton remains one of the most haunting cases in Florida's history. It is a story that stripped away the illusion of suburban safety. It taught us that the monsters aren't always lurking in the shadows of the unknown. Sometimes they are the children we wave to in the driveway. Today, Lakewood is quiet again. The yellow ribbons are gone. But the memory of the little girl who loved golf and NSYNC remains etched into the city's soul. Joshua Phillips sits in a prison cell, a man grown old in captivity, the consequence of 15 minutes of panic and a week of silence. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into cases that demand justice. Maddie's story reminds us why these cases matter, not just for the headlines, but for the lives cut short. Drop a comment. What cold case do you think deserves more attention? And share this video so Maddie's story reaches others.